The moment Peter walked into the office, the air felt frozen. 5 years ago, he and Fred signed contracts on the same day. Same role, same salary, and the exact same ambition. 5 years later, Fred was drowning in applause during meetings, carrying the halo of the reliable employee, yet his paycheck barely budged. Peter jumped jobs twice, landing at his third company, and he saw his salary shoot up by 41%. No matter how good the office coffee smelled, it couldn't mask the truth. Loyalty looks nice on paper, but it leaves you financially stuck for life. Most people will never actually say this out loud. Your workplace isn't a fair system. It is just a buyer's market. The trap is that while you're in it, you never feel trapped. It looks responsible. It looks mature. You know the system and the people. This is exactly what happened to Peter in his second year. A recruiter called, offering a salary 22% higher. He almost ignored it. He wasn't unhappy or desperate to leave. Most people react emotionally when faced with an opportunity like this. They start listing friendships, comfort, habits, and their identity. Peter did the same, but none of that changes the cold arithmetic. Internal raises will never keep up with what the market pays. This is also exactly where people like Fred get hurt. Not by a dramatic blow, but by years of small, cumulative losses. It is the gap between recognition and fair pay. Patience doesn't always compound. Sometimes, it doesn't compound at all. Peter didn't dismiss the value of familiar relationships. He knew exactly what he would lose by leaving: managers who trusted him, and teammates who responded instantly. Shortcuts only insiders knew, and the calm of not proving himself. Most people would call that a reasonable trade-off, but he didn't. Once you see it clearly, the logic can be ignored. The salary you accepted at 26, doesn't disappear. It becomes an anchor. Every internal raise stacks on top of that old number. It is constrained by budgets, approval chains, and risk calculations. Loyalty sends exactly the signal the system likes. You're unlikely to leave, and if the system believes you'll stay, it avoids the urgent price. External opportunities work differently. They don't ask about 3 years ago. They only ask what it takes today to get you. That is why Peter's job changes kept resetting his salary benchmark. Meanwhile, Fred's benchmark barely moved at all. 5 years later, Peter earned 41% more, and it wasn't because he was 41% smarter than Fred. Stretch that timeline to 10 years, and the gap becomes even starker. Job hoppers tend to earn 20 to 50% more over a decade. Read that carefully, not 2%, but 20 to 50%. Fred had ability and trust, but the system learned he would stay. Once the system learns it doesn't need to bid high, it stops bidding. This is the hidden cost of loyalty. The real question is never whether comfort has value. It is whether that value is worth being systematically underpaid year after year. Peter didn't answer this emotionally. What set them apart wasn't ambition. It was control. Fred was selling his labor inside a system that had already priced him. Most people are taught to measure work value through effort, showing up early, working hard, being useful, loyal, and reliable, just waiting for the company to finally notice them. Companies notice, yes, but here is the difference. The true tipping point isn't effort, it is control. Do you control the salary conversation or hand it to your employer? The former adjusts your value according to the market. This also explains why loyalty is so often misunderstood. Loyalty has value, guidance has value, and trust has value. But they must translate into visible skill growth or tangible resources. Otherwise, loyalty is just free tenure, with the company keeping the asset. Peter understood that every choice sits on multiple layers of value. The base is salary, then leverage, then future positioning. If staying gives rare training or promotion visibility, it is worth it. If staying only delivers comfort and familiarity, that is a different problem. It just becomes a slightly better form of underappreciation. So who gets harvested by this system the most? Usually, it is the reliable mid-level employees. Not obvious low performers, and not always the high-profile stars. Those carrying institutional memory, smoothing problems, and training newbies. Absorbing extra work, thinking they'll be fairly compensated. Often, that dependence turns into dependence on the company itself. The move to change your trajectory is actually simple. No 5-year plan required. No dramatic resignation needed. Just create a new document called Market Check. Set a reminder every 90 days and do 3 things. Find 3 job postings that match your actual work, record the salary range, and write down your current salary. Don't add any commentary yet. The key isn't ignorance, it is procrastination. Most people get signals, like a recruiter reaching out, or a peer mentions pay, or a posting shows higher pay. The problem hits in the next 10 minutes. Your brain protects the life you already have. Maybe the info is exaggerated, or the company is worse, or maybe your current role is just more complex. So make the action smaller than the excuse. Don't update your full resume, or spend the weekend researching. And don't vaguely tell yourself you'll start networking soon. Just do this table: 3 postings, 1 salary range, 1 date. If the gap is small, you've learned something real. If it is big, don't panic. Set a mechanical rule. Contact a recruiter or submit an application within 48 hours. Picture another scenario, which is usually what happens. You notice the pay gap on a Tuesday night. Wednesday gets busy. Meetings run long and Slack pings. You order dinner, promising to handle it over the weekend. By Monday, the emotional signal is completely gone. The numbers are buried under daily life. Nothing has changed except your calendar. Peter's advantage wasn't cinematic bravery. It was treating salary signals as data, not emotion. Fred kept waiting for certainty or a cleaner emotional moment. But that perfect story never actually comes. All that comes is another quarter and another year. A baseline gap that future raises can't catch up to. I'm not telling you to blow up your career tonight. This isn't a quit tomorrow fantasy, because fantasies hurt. Rent still has to be paid, and insurance still matters. Weak markets still punish rushed moves, so avoid blind action. What you do is keep real-time records of your achievements, not in your head, but in a physical document. Track external salary ranges before your boss mentions budgets. Even if you're not in a rush, take recruiter calls. Measure the cost of staying, not just the risk of leaving. True commitment is smaller and steadier than wealth fantasies. You might not get rich from one single move, but you can stop voluntarily discounting yourself. So tonight, ask yourself a very clean question. Imagine a market rate external offer appeared in front of you. What exact number proves you've stayed too long? Think about it and write your answer down.